So here I am with Sienna Morton. So thank you for connecting with me today.
Of course.
Is there anything that you want to say to introduce yourself with my?
Well, I'm Sienna. I go by she, her, hers. And I'm 22, almost 23. Grew up in Fairfax and have definitely seen like the majority of how this topic has influenced a lot of people I know, including myself. And so I feel very happy to like share and have this conversation because I do think that it's a really important topic to talk about because it isn't talked about enough at all. It's such a hard thing for people to really start to love themselves, I think, especially like with our media and what we consume as like young people in this generation. Like people will pick out what they're going to post on social media, and in reality there's so much more stuff that's happening underneath somebody. You know, it's like I want to be my authentic self online, but it's scary to have other people judging you. And I've definitely had a really unhealthy relationship with social media, and I don't really know how to get out of it, to be honest. Like I'm still like kind of in it. It's gotten better, but it's not healthy, and I know a lot of people, the majority of people don't find it healthy. This act of like constantly having stimulation. There's constant stimulation coming in from every which aspect. And, you know, for me, I think it took a while for me to not like, you know, equate my worth with the amount of likes that I was getting online. And that even started in like middle school. I mean, like we were asking people to like our Facebook profile pictures when we were in middle school because it made us feel better. And we look at the girls that have like 400 likes and be like, oh, they're beautiful because of that. And that's super messed up.
10 years later, so you're thinking like 12-year-olds hitting middle school right now are so inundated with, you know, they've got the whole TikTok experience, they've got Instagram, you know, I think those two are probably the most toxic in a lot of ways, but it's, I mean, just at such a tender age to be exposed to that.
I mean, I just got chills thinking about it because it's like, it's scary.
It is. And what do you feel like people are looking for?
I think for attraction from other people, like it's the attention that people want. You know, I know that I would try to look good for male attention. And if I wasn't getting that, it's like, oh, then I'm not good enough. And that's the story that I've told myself. You know, and it's also, I think it's interesting for women because women are the ones that are constantly like nitpicking things that's wrong with other people or that's wrong about themselves. And I think men are very like, they're so much more just simplistic, I would say. You know, and I think it's hard because women have had it a lot different in the way that, you know, we were raised with like, so not only social media, but just advertisements and things like that. And like, you know, getting Botox and stuff. I mean, I know so many people that are getting Botox even now, you know. You know, what for? Like, I think it makes people feel better, and that's totally, I'm all for that. I'm for people wanting to, you know, modify their bodies in whatever way they feel they want to. But it's definitely like, would we have that if we didn't have such, you know, harmful media growing up?
Oh yes, and how important image has become, and it hacks into some really, you know, biological impulses, right, around like it having what I think my husband refers to, because he's really into evolutionary biology, like mate value. You know, the whole idea of like, you want to be attractive to the opposite sex if you're heterosexual, because that means you're going to attract a mate. And so that's like an important wiring, but it's been just hijacked beyond.
And just like that, even advertisements of women like, you know, with big boobs and a nice body, it's like sex sells, you know, but it's always women usually. I mean, you know, there's male advertisements like that too, but it's different because women's bodies have been sexualized for forever, you know. It's never about, you know, it's never about somebody's true beauty, which is just like on the inside. And I've had to forcefully like change my algorithm by like scrolling away from things that I know are gonna make me feel bad, or like scrolling away from things that are gonna make me feel like in a toxic state of mind. Because I can easily go down the route of like, why doesn't your boyfriend love you and stuff, and just like start looking through that. And it's just, it's so bad, and I've really like tried to scroll away from that stuff. It sucks to be addicted to my phone. Like it's really hard. It doesn't make me feel good. It makes me feel lethargic, and it makes me feel like I'm kind of a zombie. It's like if you're, wanting to distract yourself, or if you're bored and whatever, you're gonna go sit on your phone for a few hours. And, screen time in the US is like, over 10 hours a day. And it's so addicting. Like if you were to look on your screen time about like how many times you've picked up a phone, or you can check to see how many times you've clicked on an app. And it's just outrageous.
So do you want to just dive into porn, talking about like how porn reflects or affects relationships? And
I think I watched this video, talking about pornography addiction and how it actually does mimic the effect of cocaine in your body. It's very addicting, and I've seen it with a lot of people. I've seen it with partners, and it's such an interesting topic, and it's so like shameful to talk about almost, because I personally have been trying to have more open conversations in recent times with friends and whoever about it. And it's really hard for people to talk about.
What's hard about it?
I think that it's kind of like the underbelly of somebody's psyche, It's like not conscious whatsoever. I think pornography, people are going into a state of fully like immersing yourself in something that's not real, and just like being on your phone in general, it's like it's immersing yourself into a different world that's not what's right in front of you. And so I think that it creates a lot of disconnect for people. I think it's for men, it's easier to kind of rationalize, or just it's easier for them to do it maybe because it's like men are visual creatures, it's one and done, and then they can go on, and men are very easily stimulated. But I think for women it affects women a lot differently, because our mind and body need to be interconnected to feel pleasure. And I think porn can be very disassociating, and especially like if somebody starts watching porn at a young age, it takes your life force from you throughout your years. And I think, I know a lot of people, including myself too, who have used porn and have felt very, disassociative, disconnected from their own bodies. Numb are some words that I've heard. Very numb is a lot of, I know a lot of women who don't, or have trouble, like really a lot of trouble orgasming because it's, they feel numb. And I think it could be from starting to watch porn at a young age, and needing certain amounts of stimulation and mental stimulation. And it's such a like odd conversation, because there's two sides to it. It's like porn, I think, can be healthy in moderation. I think it can help somebody explore their sexuality. Although I think people can become very dependent on it really quickly. And, I am supportive of sex workers, and I think that if somebody wants to, use their body to make money, and that's totally fine. And if that's somebody's choice, and they're going to do that, and there is like this ethical view on like OnlyFans, and it's like, okay, people are paying the creator and they're supporting the creator, but it's it's so odd, because when it comes into like monogamous relationships, I know for myself, I felt a lot of insecurity with partners using pornography. And not necessarily sure why, because I've used pornography, and, it's just I think women tend to compare themselves to other women a lot. And so that's where at least my insecurity comes from, is like, you know, why am I not getting this attention? You know, I've had partners express that they feel like it takes away their life force too. But it's such a high, and it's so fun to like go masturbate and watch porn and like, you know, kind of immerse yourself into that world. And I think that there's a lot more access, like you said, like, you know, there's sites like, you know, you can just go on the internet, or you can use OnlyFans, and there's also this app called Reddit. And Reddit is like a much more amateur site, I think, and it's used for news, it's used for memes, or it can be for anything, but they don't have any censorship, so you can use it for porn. But the thing about Reddit is that it's like an app on your phone, and so you can start to use Reddit like a social media app. And if somebody were to be using it entirely for porn, they can click on their phone at any time and start to get that stimulation of like scrolling through porn. And it's, you know, it's anyone and everyone can post to that. So it's like, you know, random people all over the place posting to these communities, and other people can just search through and look. You know, I think that accessibility makes it pretty harmful, you know, like, because people can just start to use it all the time. And like, I've heard people express that using Reddit, like they realize that they have a problem because they're not even like feeling horny anymore when they're looking at something like that. And it's just like for the stimulation.
They're not feeling horny when they're looking at the porn even.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, like desensitized to it.
Completely desensitized to it.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
It is like a drug. It's like,
Yes.
you know, your brain is...
You have the tolerance build up. You know?
It's a tolerance build up.
And
wow.
Yeah, I think it makes people, like, I think it can reduce the amount of testosterone in men.
That's what I've heard.
And I think it can be detrimental to a woman in the way that she becomes numb and is unable to like experience sexual pleasure because
there's a lot going on there in terms of like you've alluded to it, but the comparison is one.
Yeah.
But then you're used to a stimulation from a phone. So how does that translate into, you know, person-to-person interaction and sex?
Right.
And like real world bodies together.
And needing like something and becoming reliant on something. And that something is like having the stimulation in front of you rather than like tapping into your body and really allowing yourself to feel everything. You know, because if you're not able to like center yourself and ground yourself when you're having a sexual experience, your mind can be in 100 different places. Yeah, I think in sexual situations, it's like you could just be thinking about something else. And like, you know, I know for women and for me, it's like I could think about one thing like that doesn't have to do with what's happening in the moment. And then it's just like, it's over.
You're not in your body anymore.
Yeah.
Luckily, you can go back.
Right.
You can bring yourself back. That is good.
Yeah.
How has it affected your pleasure? How has, you know, either you looking at porn or you knowing that your boyfriend is,
right?
How is it affecting your pleasure?
I think for me, I felt very uncomfortable with my partner using porn. I use porn too. Like, and honestly, like I started using porn at a very young age. And I think that it's made it really hard for me to like get into my body and center myself while I'm actually having sex. I thought it was nearly impossible for me to reach orgasm with somebody else, you know, because I could only do it by myself, or like I was uncomfortable or afraid like to let myself go with somebody. I think I heard this thing where it's like the part of your brain that senses safety and danger around you shuts off completely. So when you're having an orgasm, you need to feel completely safe with somebody. And I think, you know, like with my partner using porn, and like I am somebody who needs words of affirmation. That's my love language. I need the words of affirmation. I need to be told I'm beautiful. I need to, you know, be told that I'm loved, and, you know, physical too. But if I'm not being told that kind of stuff, it's hard for me to like not think about how does my body look? What am I doing with my hands or my hair? Like, oh no, like my hair's not placed right. Like all these random things that like can get in the way if I'm not feeling like just beautiful and powerful. It's really hard to do it also just with like not having a person, like a sexual partner that makes you feel very safe. I mean, I've definitely had like my fair share of sexual experiences that don't make me feel good. And I feel like somebody doesn't care to see who I am as a person. And like, I'm just being used for my body.
And I mean, it was hard enough, growing up, finding a sense of pleasure as a young woman.
Right.
And I'm almost 50 and getting better at it now.
Right.
But I can only, imagine what it's like now with all these other layers and factors of like how many things are working against you arriving in your body.
Right.
Feeling empowered and feeling safe.
I think I felt really inspired by women starting to bring up the conversation of like your womb space and having it be like this sacred space that can experience like the most divine sexual pleasure and orgasm and all of that. And it's like this kind of portal for like creativity equals sexual energy, like all those conversations. And I'm so drawn to that because I feel like that resonates so much with, where I am lacking, I guess. And so I'm really looking forward to kind of understanding like that sacred sexuality more. Still like, it's still hard for me to like be okay with this whole porn thing because although I know it's okay and it's normal, it still feel good in my body. And not for me either. Like I don't want to use porn. I don't think that it creates a healthy mindset. I think, everyone that I've talked to also that once they finish, it's like they're kind of disgusted with themselves.
You get the titillation, you get the pleasure, you get the the release of the hormones and the neurotransmitters.
Right.
But you're left feeling kind of empty.
Right. Yeah.
So I kind of want to talk about women's pleasure a little bit because this is my kind of hypothesis is that sex is way better when a woman is enjoying herself and is, embodied into the experience, is turned on.
Yeah.
And that there's something that can happen in person, especially if a woman can get to that place of feeling her pleasure and relaxing.
Right.
And like men get kind of focused on women having pleasure and having an orgasm, and the way they see it in porn is just so staged. She's having this really loud orgasm, doing something that maybe wouldn't give you an orgasm. And so there's not a lot of education there, but can you talk more about how much better sex can be if a woman is enjoying it?
Absolutely.
For both of them.
Absolutely. I think so much of it has to do with the man's presence with somebody and the masculine presence of like I care to see you as your full self, and providing this like container for a woman to feel safe and nurtured and like beautiful and badass and confident, and it allows a woman to surrender. And I mean, at least for me, when I'm feeling empowered, like I love my sexual experiences with my partner, and it's the best ever. We just are fully like embodied and like having just such a present moment with each other.
So much of this kind of comes back to like basic stuff in a way, and you've talked a little bit about attention going elsewhere.
Right.
And we all need to feel valued, and especially by our intimate partner.
Yeah.
Really feeling like you're the one, and you're the one I want to ravage or have sex with or be intimate with, and when the attention goes elsewhere, that can feel threatening because attention in a way is a resource, right? Like it's our partner's resource. If they're putting it on us, then there is a safety to that.
Right.
And is it different for you if you're out in the world and your partner's checking out a woman, putting his attention on someone else, than it is if he's looking at porn? Like, do you have a distinction around that, or does that feel equally threatening?
When I was by myself and single for the period of time between my first partner and my current one, I felt so strong in that humans are always going to be attracted to other humans. Like it's a natural human experience. And we can't control that. And it's okay to find other women beautiful and appreciate another woman's beauty. But it is threatening in a relationship because I have my own past trauma and of being cheated on. And so it's scary for me to, watch my partner like admiring somebody else. I think, you know, the difference between somebody, a real person, and pornography is different, just because it's almost like their purpose is to just be this sexual object. And that's like, it's super crazy to think about it that way, because they're obviously real people with real feelings and real emotions, but through porn, it's almost like they're serving as like a mannequin or a inanimate object, literally, for people to get off. So it's different. I don't find porn as threatening at all. As like, everything for me like comes from somebody's phone. For me, like in my past relationship, I would have never found out anything that my ex was doing unless I had looked at his phone. And so it brings up a lot of insecurities of like, what is he doing on his phone? Like, who is he texting? Who's messaging him on Instagram? Who's he following on Instagram? All those things go through my mind, like all the time. And soothing it has really been like working in therapy. Like, I've been really needing to go to therapy a lot, like weekly, because, you know, I thought that so much of my feelings about this kind of stuff had been healed after I had split with my last partner. But now, since I'm in a relationship again, it's showing me like all of my blind spots of like where I'm still not developed in those kind of ways. Soothing those feelings is really, you know, understanding that like love is really hard to come by, and, you know, my partner loves me and I am my unique self, and, you know, if something were to be happening, it would come up in our relationship, and it doesn't have to be shown to me over the phone. When your mind is like when you're having rational thoughts, because you're trying to create this sense of control or a sense of safety. And so my mind, when it's like going on its like rampage of like trying to figure out what could be happening, it's trying to make me feel safer, because I'm trying to tell myself the same story that I'd already been told.
Own your fear seems so important in the process, and I really hear you doing that in your relationship of like, okay, this is my insecurity, he has insecurities too. Right. The other thing I really liked about what you said is like kind of honoring that it's understandable to have the impulse to want to look on his phone to find some sense of control, right, or to reaffirm the story that is going on in your mind. Right. So do you think it's important to have rules around that in a relationship? I can only imagine that's like just the temptation to go on someone else's phone.
Bad. I mean, both my partner and I have gone through each other's phones, because we've seen our past partners really hurt us. And, you know, I've personally found things that made me uncomfortable, and he's also found things that has made him uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And so we're both like, oh my God, we've been dishonest with each other. Now we're so insecure, but at least we can like be together. I told myself I would never look at somebody's phone again, because it makes you high when you see something that doesn't feel good. And if you're searching for things that aren't going to make you feel good, you're probably going to find something that's not going to make you feel good. I think every time we have open conversations like this, it makes me feel more open, which I think in turn reflects in our sex life. Mm-hmm. I realized my insecurity with porn was I was feeling more shut down and disconnected, because when I would try to have an open conversation about it, he was getting defensive, right? Because it's a very shameful topic. Like, people have so much shame surrounding what they watch, like when they're alone, in terms of porn, obviously. And, you know, until I was like, look, you don't need to feel uncomfortable with me, and I'm not trying to judge you at all. And then it's like an open conversation, and like I feel so much better after that. Like, when, you know, he is honest with me, I feel weight lift off my shoulder. You know, I was very insecure about pornography, regardless of if I'm watching it, and admitting, you know, a porn addiction, it was like, whoa, like this has nothing to do with either one of us.
I was talking to a friend last night. We were just talking about like how many rules there are about when you're in a heterosexual relationship about engaging with the opposite sex.
Right.
There's just so many rules and barriers, unseen, you know, unspoken rules about like, you don't even, you know, necessarily spend time with someone or, you know, engage in a friendship. How do you find safety without necessarily having all those layers of rules around it? And maybe this is like next steps of, you know, human evolution and relationship.
Totally.
Like, how can we be open to, I mean, because half of the world is the opposite sex,
Right.
you know, and just be open
Right.
to engagement and feeling that security. And I know a lot of it has to do with like how basically secure people are in terms of their
Right.
attachment
Right.
styles.
I think definitely how secure you
Mhm.
are. You know, I have never felt like I can't, you know, be friends with any other men, you know, for my partner at all. Like, I'll spend time alone with some of my best guy friends all the time. You know, and my partner's not threatened by it at all. I think that where it's threatening for him is when, like, I start talking about some guy that he's never heard about, you know, and he's like, well, who is that? Like, you know, and is, you know, wants to just know, like, who that person is and make sure that he feels, like, known to the other person, you know, to the other man,
Yeah.
I guess.
Great.
For me, you know, my partner doesn't really, like, we're friends with all the same people, so it's like, he wouldn't really go out of his way to go spend time with my girlfriends by themselves, I don't think. You know, I guess I would kind of find it a little weird now that I'm thinking about it, but
I would too,
You know?
but it's an unspoken rule, right? Because
Right,
if he went
it's
off with the
unspoken
guy friends, it
Absolutely.
wouldn't be as weird.
Right. That being said, like, I definitely find myself being like if we're at a party and he's like speaking to other women and like he's very engaging, but I find myself like closing off because I'm like, stop engaging so hard, you know?
Yeah, there's that attention going
Right.
somewhere else. One thing that I am interested in, I don't know how I'm going to do it, maybe creating some kind of online course or something, is around embodiment. You know, how to arrive in our body, and part of it is, you know, there's a lot to feel, and sometimes
Yeah.
it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But do you have anything to say about embodiment, in particular when it comes to the sexual experience, and what's helped you, maybe?
I think for me, embodiment is like an ongoing practice always. I mean, there's moments where I feel so embodied and there's other moments where I'm like, you know, not at all. For me, it's like so about having my self-care practice, and having like some sort of ritual that you're doing all the time that like brings you back into your body. And something that you love to do, and it needs to like start small and you can like explore what feels good. And then really stick with something, you know, like for me, I notice when I'm not embodied, when I'm not doing my practice at all. And like, I notice my anxious attachment comes up too, like, and I want to make sure that we're, you know, together. But then I'm like, I need to go be alone. Like once I go be alone and come back to myself, then I'm like, oh my God, how, like I needed this so bad so I can show up for somebody else and show up even sexually for somebody else. But for me, that looks like, you know, writing in my journal and coming into my body through stretching and movement meditation.
Right.
So listening to music and dancing in my room at night, or like stretching and like really like slowing my body down and getting out of my own head and just like honestly just like dumping words onto my journal, like pages and pages and pages.
And how often is
I
good for
mean,
you to do that?
Like every night.
Okay.
Once I got rid of the fear of being alone, like after my last partner, and was like, wait, being alone is like exactly what I could ever possibly need. Obviously I'm in a new relationship and it's like boom, here's everything you haven't worked on. And then it's like, now I'm gonna leave for Australia and it's like gonna go back into this phase of being alone and integrating all the stuff I have learned and like
yeah.
it's gonna feel really good and like
Yeah, intimate relationships are like an intensive workshop.
oh my God, yeah. It's insane.
Very stimulating.
They're so like confronting and they require so much like of looking at yourself and so much growth. Like I realized too through an intimate relationship that like no matter how much work that you can do alone, and at some point you need somebody to mirror to you like things that are hidden.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I feel like we can pause there. Does
Yeah.
that sound good?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much,
Of
Sienna,
course.
for meeting with me.
Of course.
Yeah,
It's awesome.
it's really great.
I feel like fired up about all of it too.